whether it's someone tricky that you're dealing with, or you're getting kind of gifts out of nowhere, or being lavished on in a relationship and you're feeling like, wow, what this is great. What's this about? Or you have those people in your life where you feel like you always have to take care of them, or they're always like, you want to give them money or give them help. Or I encourage you to take contemplation time to sit imagining them in your mind's eye, surround the whole experience with light so you can get to the highest truth and say, is there a past life here? Is there a past life connection, a karmic link where there's unfinished business carried over from a past life into this lifetime, where there's karma, the scale and balance of karma is trying to play out? And what am I supposed to do with this? What's my greatest lesson in this? Or what is this about?
Hello, and welcome to the Constance Messmer podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I had a client recently that I did as a phone read. We were speaking and she was really going through some stuff with her adult son. And it was really fascinating for me because what came up through spirit and also looking at her soul and looking at her karmic chakra and gathering information from his essence and his karmic chakra and both of their guides. And it was fascinating to me because what really came through profoundly was her karmic debt was over. It was finished with her son. Now, it didn't mean that she was stopping loving him or helping him or whatever, but it was this, all the while, this kid had been really, really, really needy throughout his whole life. It was one of the ways he kind of manipulated their relationship so that he could kind of get away with being taken care of on countless levels. And so it was fascinating to me because it was really in the read, and the information that was coming through was giving her permission to kind of step back from the tentacles of his neediness. And in doing that, she would actually free this adult child, quote unquote, to standing up in his own power. But it was interesting because for the dynamic relationship of their entire life, and she's a biological mother and I'm a mother, and I know how it is. You always want to help your kids, always want to take care of your kids, but it had just come to the place where it was just not healthy. And I know for some of you out there, it may be a necessary thing that you're caring for your adult children and paying their way and housing them and all that stuff, for whatever things that might be in your sphere of life and in theirs. In this particular situation, we looked at some of their past lives together, which was profound for her. With when she was looking, they resonated with why he had these behavioral patterns and why she had these behavioral patterns in this incarnation. And it was interesting because, she was constantly giving now, and she's also a giver. She's also beautiful heart energy woman who continually tends to give more than she receives. But what came through was it was Spirit's way of telling me that she had recently paid off her karmic debt and that she was finished with repeating the patterns of this with him, especially now that he was an adult, and that she owed him nothing more. And it was a clean slate. She was kind of disheveled by that information because what was coming through was really resonating with her. But also she was kind of perplexed. Why would Spirit say she doesn't have to give anymore? And I said she had been giving and doing to the point of exhaustion, so that it was no longer an energy exchange. It was an energy kind of takeover, right? She was getting depleted in the course of their relationship, in the course of the read. It was very beneficial and she felt great relief. And then afterwards, we checked back in with each other, as I sometimes do. And she said things had gotten much better, like even her energetically pulling away like this or coming to the awareness of these past lives. And we processed through and then we connected her with her soul and his soul to say, listen, this is, I've done as much as I can for you. Now it's your turn to kind of take the ball and run, because my job as a parent is to get you to get into adulting now you've got all the resources and the tools and you've got this and it'll be fine. And so when she did that on a spiritual psychic level, right, through the soul awareness, she was able to really release him, and he was able to really pull back, kind of move on with his life. So when I checked back in with her, she said countless changes had taken place. He was not angry at her like he had been in their past, where she was kind of trying to cut him off before or pull back on resources of support. He was actually like, it's fine. I actually get it now, Mom. He came to a greater awareness of understanding. And so it was beneficial to do all the soul work that we had done. I think for me to pass along to you that this sometimes has to happen, right? We have to recognize when there's people in our life that we owe from other incarnations, like a karmic debt, where maybe they took care of us or we made a promise. Remember past life promises. Maybe we made a promise to the person, for the person, I will take care of you. I'll always be there for you. I've always got your back. All of these kind of promises that carry forward in this lifetime when we see them, whether if we see them as a significant other or we see them as a work partner or work person, or even our own children or our own parents or our siblings. And so what was interesting with what Spirit was kind of opening up her eyes to is that she had been finished with the karmic debt because she had been giving and doing to the point of exhaustion. It wasn't just depletion of her financial resources, although those were taking its toll, but she was getting on in years. So she's like, listen, I can't just keep making money for both of us. He's got to get on it. But it became this attitude shift in the relationship too. And so it was for me with working with her in this whole arena of higher conscious awareness to relationship issues or relationship ties to someone, karmic ties. For me, it was to kind of get her that, you need to really resolve this to the point so that she doesn't carry it forward and repeat in later in this lifetime or in another lifetime. And so for her, when we went through it, it was meant to be resolved. She was meant to pull back. She was meant to just be, connected as a mother-son relationship in love and only support in ways that felt more comfortable for her and empowering to both of them. Listen, I have also done reads and sessions with people where I'm like, oh my God, this past life thing that you did, this karmic debt stuff that you set up is so extreme that this is always going to be that way in this lifetime. So you just have to sit it out for the ride, figure it out, and you're going to laugh. Sometimes these are otherwise known as alimony payments, right? So these are things where it's like, wow, is this a past life thing where it didn't work as a relationship in this incarnation? We tried, it didn't happen, but now I still, I'm going to supply for you or pay your way or whatever. So it's a lot to consider. I think it's a lot to consider. And so I think it's interesting if you give it a little think about where any of those kind of thoughts might land in your life. So after our session, because she had follow-up questions and I responded via email, I'm just going to tell you some of the email answers that came out of it. I told the woman, I said, it feels like you've been closing doors behind you as you walk forward in life. And there are some areas that you don't need to revisit, rethink, rework, or reconcern yourself with. You have done enough. You can move on. And it was interesting because when this came through, it was multiple meanings, right? It was not just with her son. It was, she had grown to a soulful place of spiritual awareness where she was ready to close a bunch of doors and be finished and done with the way she was thinking or doing in regards to looking at her past or dealing with past episodes, whether in her family of origin or life experiences or work experiences or friends. And Spirit was kind of reminding her, it is about moving forward. It is about eyes forward. Otherwise, you're constantly dragging that stuff from the past around you and you're reliving it and revisiting it, and it's not allowing you for proper soul growth. And so Spirit was really adamant about when you close this door of awareness to move forward, walk forward, and don't revisit, don't rethink, don't rework, don't reconcern yourself with this. You've done enough. You've done enough. And so Spirit was telling her, don't look backwards with guilt, angst, or any needy form of dragging yourself back into the drama of that person's company, their experience, their mindset. And so sometimes even with kids, and I hate to say it, or loved ones that we adore and love, that sometimes the mindset is such a huge gap of connectivity where, you might have someone that's just super curmudgeon or super, they just don't align with your truth anymore. And so it's how can you look at that link to see if there is a karmic debt and what did you promise them? And so, me, I always encourage you to take some contemplation time to sit, light a candle, make sure you're not going to be disturbed, and to just sit with your eyes closed and hands on heart with the intention of connecting to the highest truth to come forward and connect with you and give you guidance in regards to any karmic debt or karmic link that you might have with this other person. Because even if it's someone as beloved as your mate or your child or your parent or, family member or whatever, it may be that when you kind of say, what did I say I would do? And you might get, like you said, you'd be a cheerleader, or you said you'd help them when they were going through hardship. And then if you look deeper, you might say, okay, well, how did I get that I would help them? You would always give them other ways of thinking, and you think, oh, this is exactly how it's been going. I'm always there for them and troubleshooting their problems, but they never take my advice. They never change their ways. They're stuck in their ways. They're not hearing it from me. It doesn't matter if I offer books or workshops or finances or different ways of thinking. They are just stuck, stuck, stuck. And so in these moments of kind of reconciling or recognizing actually that karmic link, that you might notice that there's actually, how does that feel to you? It could feel like an incredible imbalance. And it could feel like you have enough. You have done enough. And you could say to them, listen, this is beyond me. And I recognize that what I have to offer no longer serves you. Hey, as you follow my teachings, I've created this journal to be your companion. Your 11 Soul Senses is a journal for self-discovery. It's an invitation to deepen your connection to yourself and the world around you and others. This is a good thing. Your soul senses are experienced through your higher conscious awareness. Through them, you perceive the spiritual aspects of your environment, the energy patterns, vibrations, soul level experiences, and underlying feelings. I'm laughing because I'm reading a script and it's going a little slow for me. Fully tuning into your world in this way, you increase your awareness and you begin to live your unlimited potential. These are my words, but I had to write them down to remember them. This journal is for you to document your quest for self-discovery. This is a good idea. Definitions are in there to help you understand how you are perceiving through your soul senses. Don't forget, I'm all about contemporary language. Prompts and quotes that we've added guide and encourage you. The empty pages are there for extraordinary exploration as you connect with your own higher states of awareness. I think I moved my eyeballs away from looking at the camera. But listen, to get yours, I invite you, I'm encouraging you to head to constancemessmer.com and check out my shop. Listen, I did it for you. All this I do for you. You know that. I believe in you. You got this. Thanks for tuning in. The awareness of this episode is when it's karmic debt and recognizing, even though you said your part was going to help them, it may be that they're not ready to receive the help. And so the way you could get that is you could ask their soul by picturing them standing before you and say, are you ever going to get it in this lifetime? Am I ever going to be able to not help you in the form that I'm going to? And they might say, no, this is my lesson. I'm trying to teach you boundaries, and I am going to always be how I am. And until you walk away, I'm never going to get it. And so sometimes that's even it, right? There's this lopsided thing. You think I've come to save you. I've come to work with you. I've come to take care of you. And you think it's going to end, right? You think it's going to like, oh, yay, I finally did it. I helped them succeed, or I helped them get out of the pity pot, or whatever it is. And you think there's going to be an end, but Spirit's saying, not always. only sometimes. And then you get to choose, because if your journey in this life was to help them, but their journey in this life was to be like right where they are and stuck, then they're offering you a different gift, right? They're not offering you resolution and rah, rah, rah. It's all this. They're offering you reflection of boundaries, or they're offering you no judgment to the choices that we each make. What I'm saying is there's a lot of layers when it comes to karmic debt and karmic ties. It might never end how you think or hope it might be, but in going into these quiet sessions of contemplation where you imagine them standing before you, ask the highest of the heavens to surround this experience with light and love so that truth can be made known to you. You could ask, what more can I do with this person? Is there anything that I could do that would make a difference? And you might get a no, no, no. And so then you might get, well, by the grace of the cosmic all, how can I kind of wrap this whole experience in life and move on? Because what really came through to that woman in the follow-up was, you don't go backwards with guilt. Don't feel, angst or, dragging yourself into the drama of it. And because they're never going to change. They're never going to change. And what happens is once you start leaning back or feeling guilty and you turn your attention back to them, you end up going into these old patterns or these old habits, and you're returning to behavior that doesn't suit you, right? You've grown beyond those behaviors because you've got recognition of consciousness. They're pulling you back, or you're choosing to go back, right? You're choosing to go back to that relationship and going, oh, I just feel guilty, so I have to. So what I'm asking you or inviting you to do are in those moments of contemplation and saying, if you get clearly like, enough already, this is over, nothing I do is going to help, and this is not rewarding for me or for them, right? In a way, because they feel like you might feel like they're takers, I'm a giver. Then you might say, okay, what do I need to do to release this? That's key. Again, this does not mean you never have a relationship with them again, although it might mean that. But oftentimes it means it doesn't grab you anymore. It does not create the reverberation in your being of like guilt, angst, trouble. Like it's just like you're unnerved, right? You're unnerved in a way, because you're like, oh, I get it from this higher perspective. So with karmic debt, it's often a promise or a rightening of a ship, kind of, if you will. Like you made this promise in a previous incarnation with this person, on some level, and you're trying to pay back. And sometimes when we owe people from our ancient past, it's because we have been in the wrong and they've been in the right, or they've been in the wrong and we've been in the right. And we're trying to kind of balance the scales, if you will. And so sometimes that means we're a cheerleader, or sometimes we're like, maybe we're born the parent and we get to raise them as best we can, or whatever it is. Or maybe they're born the parent and they're trying to help us. And, it just becomes a really interesting way of looking at that dynamic of relationship when you consider closing your eyes in contemplation and saying, is there a karmic debt here? What's it about? And what's the deeper lesson, right? So I think it's important to take the time, especially when there's a rub or something is taxing and tiring and you're getting exhausted by a connection with another person. So now I want you to flip this. It could also mean that you're in the receivership. You're the one that could have been owed favors, efforts, help, or clearing the air with a person or a place or an experience or a mindset. And so sometimes, and this is always cute to me when people are like, oh my God, I get so many blessings. I get so many blessings. And it's even in their astrology chart or something where things come to them and, just it's effortless. And it's just like people are giving them, they feel guilty sometimes, but maybe not, that people, things work out for them. They get gifts, they, whatever. Maybe they end up with a partner that they don't have to work because the partner has the money, or maybe they were gifted from their parents, or they get a windfall in their own creation or stuff like this, where just things come to them and you're in the receivership, right? Maybe that's you. And it becomes this, again, not feeling guilty, not feeling upset about this, but where are you in this spectrum of kind of giving and taking and all of that? I think that's important to look at too when there's a karmic tie, and the karmic debt is you're being owed or you're being paid. And I have to tell you, But sometimes I tell my husband, I'm like, oh my God, you must have been a real troublemaker in another life because you're really helping a lot of people in this life, because he's very philanthropic. And so I'm like, you are just really giving and giving and giving, probably because you owed them. And how about me, right? Remember when I told you about that lifetime that I uncovered when I was studying Reiki, and I was really awful? And I was really, really awful. I think a lot of the people, I told you this, a lot of the people that come to me for healing sessions is because I was not nice to them in other incarnations. And I'm supposed to help and empower them in this lifetime. Listen, if that resonates with you and you're listening, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I know that I was also, toying with darkness in other incarnations, and I was manipulating my power. And so I definitely do not do that in this lifetime. I think I'm making up for that. I'm making up. It's both sides of the spectrum. So it's really interesting when there's people that come into our life and we're like, wow, there's a link here. People that we work really well with, or we have a similar mission, or we have a similar outlook, or similar kind of, we're just really compatible. Those could be because not so much there's a karmic debt, but there is a karmic link. There is a soul link. And those are fun and playful, and they just get together. There could also be links that you have where there's an incredible rub, where you just have issue with that person, where it is not easy, it's tricky, whatever. So we often look at past lives, like what was there a promise that you said, I'm going to remind you of your light or remind you of better ways, and all this kind of stuff. Because your feelings are the link to manifesting, and your feelings are a link to your own happiness and your soul's growth, I would recognize when something feels uncomfortable, finished, or you feel like you're being taken advantage of, or you're not happy. These two, you can take the time to sit in contemplation to say, is this coming from inside of me, or is the source because my power's being given away to someone else, or I'm in a relationship with someone else that is not suiting me anymore and I need to pull away, or does it need to shift? And then the next questions would be, in those moments of contemplation, is there a karmic tie here? And what did I promise? Or what was I supposed to come to an awareness in this lifetime? Or are they teaching me? What are they teaching me? And then with the person, you can envision a contract after you get all the answers, like, what's this link about? What am I supposed to remember? Do I owe them anything? I've tried everything. Are they ever going to get it? Are they ever going to stop seeking my help or my support? And maybe you're done with it, even though they might not be. But it's about your happiness. Like, you know what? I wanted shift, right? And so what do I need to learn from all this? And can I move on? Or is there more to understand? And you're going to have to sort through that. And I'm all a big fan of journaling, as you know, to kind of write down the experience, ask your guides and angels and your own soul awareness and your own soul wise self being to help you come up with, maybe there might be little reminders throughout the next few days, or a little eureka awareness of understanding, right? You might have signs come to you that support what you've uncovered or need to consider. And remember, in clairvoyance and clairaudience lessons, those signs could be, titles of a movie, or, an article in a magazine, or somebody says something. It doesn't always have to happen on a spiritual level. Spirit can also put images in front of our physical self to have us receive answers from questions we've pondered or posed. So those are all interesting. I also think communication is key in life. I always have to remember, like, okay, not everybody speaks telepathically, Constance. You need to talk, communicate beyond telepathic communication. And so I always encourage you to, if there's somebody that your relationship has run the gamut, or if there's, people that depend on you that you need to shift the whole kind of experience, speak from your heart. And I always send and project light of love before me. And I even sometimes talk to their soul before I see them. And I say, listen, I really want to talk to you about this subject. So what does that look like, talking to someone's soul? Just like I've already been telling you, eyes closed, because it'll help you focus inward to the spiritual experience. And in asking that you connect with them and picture them before you, you make a unitive link. That just means your intention is to speak soul to them and talk to them and say, listen, I really need to talk to you about the dynamic dynamic of our relationship, or this incredible karmic link that we have, or this, debt I feel I've paid, or whatever it is. And so maybe talk to them on a soul level first, and then talk to them in the physical. And you might find it'll go much smoother, right? I also project love forward when I go into these conversations in the physical. And I also say, listen, this is going to be a tricky conversation for me. Please forgive me if I don't speak it clearly, but I'm going to speak from the heart as best I can. And I want to listen. I want to share my part, and I want to listen, and I want us to have a, clear communication as possible, and just always approaching it from a higher consciousness perspective, like what's the greater lesson here? What's happening? If they're starting to freak out or be unnerved by the complications or the experience of the communication, ask inside, use your clair-pensée, what's coming up for them right now, and see what comes back to your awareness. Because sometimes they don't even say it, but we might say it. Listen, this might be tricky for you because you're scared on how you're going to make your money now, or, whatever it is. I think this is fabulous work you're doing if you're interested in karmic ties and karmic debt, because it is sticky and can be tricky, but it is ever so important to understand and recognize when there is a karmic tie or a karmic debt occurring, and what you might do to kind of shift the energy for it, especially if it is taking you out in some form, right? Which I hate to say, but for some people, they get sick, or, because they're just exhausted by it all. So I know this person who was she was the breadwinner for the family, even in her younger years, and supporting her parents and supporting her kids. And then she got sick, really sick, cancer sick. And then, she's going through her savings, and who's going to help her? I hope the family pulls together to help her. But it's really fascinating to me when I think, wow, go into the karmic debt, go into the karmic tie. And then when you finally unravel it and understand it, and you clarify your desire in that spiritual space to kind of disconnect or wash your hands of a situation, it really does become a sense of empowerment for souls. You empower them to get on with it, and you empower yourself to have this sense of freedom like you never have before. Trust me on that. Your whole life can change. Your whole life can change. And so can theirs. And I mean in a good way. If you do listen to the Past Life Connections episode, you'll hear my story of when I finally was able to release this man that I had in and out of my life for countless years. And finally, by letting him go, one thing led to another, and I was able to then meet and marry my husband. And I'm grateful that I didn't marry that other guy. I would have been kind of stuck in a real manipulative relationship, which would not have been good. And so I don't think that release would have occurred unless I looked at the karmic tie, unless I looked at this kind of power over that was occurring. And so I really feel, as I've told you, that our life is a continuation, a string of lifetimes together, short stories in our book of our entire Akashic records. And it's really imperative to look that if one is carried over to the next house, so especially in relationship. I think it's important to note that karmic debt could also be when you feel you owe something to a whole group of people, or even to, maybe a cause. I know that might be in past life promises that has to do with causes, because I was saying that past life promise episode had to do with the solar plexus, personal power, self-esteem, who you are, what you came to do. So sometimes when we're called to a certain path, or to help a certain idea or belief, or, even the environment, that could be linked to another lifetime where maybe we weren't so helpful. Doesn't mean it is. I mean, it could also just mean that we're nature lovers like myself. But also too, karmic debt could be tied to a certain group of people where your eyes are open and you're like, oh, I, probably was not really nice to these people, this group of people in another lifetime. So I need to help them now. Sometimes the karmic debt could go beyond just one person. It could go to a group. Of course, this all begs the question, what if it's not karma at all? What if it's just this life, and there are givers and there are takers, or we have this incredible link to another and we just want to help them, or we're just in a rough spot and we need to accept help ourselves? because life is full of give and take, isn't it? And I hope to God that if we saw someone in need, we would help in a way that's right for us, whether it's a prayer or a kind word or financial or resources or whatever. And if we were in a tough spot and we needed assistance, we would be courageous enough to ask for help. All of that goes without saying, you brilliant, wise soul. And to me, the biggest thing is once we live from our heart and live from love and truth, it will all make sense and it will all work out. Because if we were all doing that, we wouldn't have an overabundance of givers or an overabundance of takers. It would just be this balance, right? It would just be this balance. Hey, Constance Messmer here. I just want to do a shout out of big thanks to all the members. I am so grateful. And all the people dropping in and giving little donations here and there and super thanks and all that stuff. I really appreciate you. You members and you people contributing and subscribers are what helped me bring this content to everyone, really. They both contribute to the cost of production, and I am definitely grateful for that. This stuff is not cheap to put out. Oh my God. Oh my God. So every little bit helps, and I am filled with gratitude that you're stepping up. I am not necessarily a joiner, not usually, but there are environmental issues in other organizations that I do belong to and I contribute to because I like to see them persevere. And I'm hoping you feel the same about this work. I hope you put it into practice in your life. That's another way that you could spread this work and help change our world, which is what I think it ultimately does. As you know, I think if everyone tuned into their soul senses, the world would be a much better place. So when you subscribe, it's a big yes vote for the content, and it helps spread the work across the planet. So when you put the lessons into practice and subscribe and like and share, you help me help you carry the lesson beyond you and me. And I am just really grateful. Legally speaking, this podcast is presented solely for educational, spiritual, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for medical diagnosis, treatment, or the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem or condition. Always check with your doctor. Thank you.